So, what's the difference between this one and that one? And as my wife would say, why do you need both? Hey everyone, I'm Nick in the States, and today we're going to have a brief, fun little discussion on the fundamental differences between a real mid-70s Gibson Les Paul custom and a fake mid-70s or late 70s Les Paul custom copy, in this case a Greco EG-600, and some of the things that make up the differences and give you a little small sliver of history there. This is not all-encompassing, this is mostly in good fun, but I happen to have both of them sitting right here. I had a few minutes and figured, why not talk about them, okay? So first off, let's talk about the real deal for a sec. Breathe out on the effort. This is my 1976 Gibson Les Paul Custom. It's a factory 3 pickup that of course has had some stuff done to it. The normal black pickguard, 3 gold pickups, gold hardware has all been swapped out for nickel stuff. This has a Duncan distortion bridge, a DiMarzio super distortion middle, and a Duncan 59 neck. Ba-ba. So that's actually a pretty cool setup. This is set up the classical Gibson way, whereas it's like neck and middle, bridge and middle, I believe. 2 volume, 2 tone, kind of how everything works that way. I added a Vibromate and a Bixby to it, but overall, this is pretty indicative for how it's put together. It's got a little bit of wear and tear to it. This one does have a maple neck hiding underneath there. You can kind of see it peeking through the wear and tear. This one has Grover tuners on it, but originally had the more Gibson tuners on it that were specific to the mid-70s stuff. So, and this one is a 76. So now, a lot of the key hallmarks of a Gibson Les Paul things are here. It has fretboard binding with the nibs. Nibs is where, hopefully this focuses in, the fretboard kind of rises up and around each of the ends of the fretboard. Has mother of pearl, mother toilet seat, block inlays all the way up the neck, has an ebony fretboard, has a maple cap over a mahogany back. The 70s for Gibson was a bit of, well, less than proud. The 70s were an era, at least in the United States, where we had things like wood veneer paneling in the basements that I think people did everywhere because they thought it looked so nice and cool. It was super cheap. And the 70s was definitely an era of good enough is good enough. And Gibson definitely is not innocent in any of this. It's a decade that also gives you, like, they went from having 2-piece tops in the original Les Pauls to when they brought the Les Pauls back, they had 3-piece maple tops and not book matched and didn't look quite as good. Gibson also, a recurring theme for their history, under the auspices of better sustain, they moved to, and you can't see it here, but in fact, it's 2 pieces of mahogany here, and in between is a piece of walnut. And each of those is probably 2 pieces as well, they're not a single piece for the whole guitar. So it's like a sandwich of wood. And they will tell you, or they claimed in their advertisements during the era, that this was to increase sustain and full body tone. In reality, it's a lot cheaper to find planks of mahogany that are 1 inch thick than planks of mahogany that are 2 inches thick. And if it's cheaper, you can make more money or keep your prices down or whatever. Whatever the pressures of the day, we all know Gibson, throughout its history, has had ups and they've had downs. So from a quality, that's just a construction standpoint, something to think about. Aside from that, it's the bridge is set into, not directly into the wood, it goes into sleeves before it screws into the body, and it would have had a stop tail piece here as well. So really kind of cool. This SOB is a solid 12 pounds, a little more once we added the Bixby to it, even though the Bixby is aluminum. And so yeah, it's definitely a keeping swole guitar. Now let's talk about the Greco EG-500. So that's a 76. This is a 78, so 2 years newer. This is in that variety of like normal weighted Les Paul, 8 pounds-ish. Nothing crazy, nothing good, but it still feels very similar. Like the Gibson, you can see that she has fretboard nibs on the fretboard. She has that beautiful large diamond on the headstock. The neck on this one is also a maple underneath, which is cool. This one has a more pronounced volute, which is this little... Gibson did that as well, but actually the volutes, Gibson has a volute as well, so you can kind of see. This was an attempt by Gibson and others of making it not suffer from the horrors of headstock breakage as much. Did it help? Still see a lot of 70s Les Paul with broken headstocks too, but maybe it did. Gibsons just like to jump. This one has Grover copies on it, kind of the same ends. In this scenario, all the hardware is still gold on this. 3 factory pickups. Once again, originally these would have probably been gold covered, but in this one, actually, maybe not. This black one is actually one of those. It's a black pickup cover that has fully exposed bobbins all the way across both of them. I'll try and show that to you so you can see it. You can just kind of see where the finish is wearing off some of it. That's a metal cover. And that's a Maxon U1000, U2000 pickup. So it might have had all black ones there, kind of a la Peter Frampton, who was quite large. He's actually kind of a small little Brit guy. But he was quite popular during this era. So it may have had 3 of these. This one has been swapped with a 57 Classic Zebra in the neck and a Burstbucker 2 in the bridge. Unlike the Gibson, the EG-600 Grecos are actually a solid piece of mahogany body. They do have a maple cap on top. They have some chambering. If I tap around, I can hear spots where it's a little hollow underneath, which is why it's 8 pounds and not 473. So that's a little different. If you don't like chambering, you don't like this as much. It's cool. Not gonna hold it against you. The other big difference is almost all of the Japanese copies, especially the lower, more economically priced ones, have rosewood fretboards instead of the magical ebony. Big difference in tone? I don't know. I've never played 2 that have the same exact pickups and same exact everything, but I have played a lot that are just really, really, really wonderful. So, in some ways, this is better built because it's a 2-piece mahogany body, no center seam sandwichy kind of thing, maple cap, just like this guy. This is chambered, which does make it a little bit lighter, a little bit more comfortable. Especially in the 70s, I think there was a race on Les Pauls and on Strats and Tellys to find the heaviest guitar was obviously the most rugged and rock and roll. I think we've grown out of some of that now. And then as we get older, we also grow out of being able to even pick them up. So, there's that. So let's talk about other small little changes. You'll notice that the binding on the Gibson has yellowed differently and a bit more than the binding on the Greco. And this is for a couple of reasons. The binding on the Greco is probably yellow because of cigarette smoke. Not that it smells it at all, but over 40 years, which is how old it is, of Japanese experiences. Before this one I bought out of Nashville, so this had a ton of fun in Japan. Came to Nashville, had fun in the Nashville circuit, and then I bought this from actually Sam Ash used in Nashville. Whereas this has a poly finish, this Gibson has a nitrocellulose lacquer finish, which is what gives you that age and some of the finish crazing that this is just starting to get in a few places. But it ages and yellows out a little bit different. But I still think this is a nice, tasty bit of aging a la cigarette smoke. The next thing to take a look at is the diamonds. And the nice thing about Grecos, especially the older ones, and the Gibsons the diamonds are pretty close. The Gibson diamond is still a little bit larger. And it definitely has that, you know, the aging of the finish makes it almost like gold-like. An interesting thing on the Grecos is while the diamond is mother of pearl, the Greco logo is like a slightly different mother of pearl that seems to kind of shine with a different grain pattern, where the Gibson logo is pretty much spot on. You can see the Greco G is sort of like the Gibson G, but a bit different. It definitely took great liberties of highway thieving the truss rod cover and still having it be the big bell like the Gibson one. But you see that from the back on the ends, very much the same. And I will tell you that you can see that the Gibson is a more pronounced cut to the open book headstock versus the Greco, which is getting tapped. This is why I like old guitars. You can bump them and it's not the end of the world. Doesn't quite have that hard edge to the V in the middle, as you can see right there. It's a little softer through the roll. Aside from that, and some weights, and this is not a light guitar either. This is just a bit heavier. The necks on both of them. The Gibson neck is just ever so slightly thinner and slimmer. This is it's still a thin neck, but slightly fuller through the contour. So through the edges, it comes out just a little bit more. But I will tell you that if you pick up one of these guitars and then play the other one and pick the other one back up, they feel and play very, very, very similarly. Now, one last thing that I will note too, and this is just the little details if you're worried about getting a fake, a Japanese Gibson copy from the 70s that's been relabeled. If you look, at least on the Greco, look at the nut slot. Nice nut slot. The nut slot is kind of on the same plane. I'll put this down. The nut slot is kind of on the same plane as the fretboard, kind of straight up and down like this. If you look at the Greco, the nut slot is diagonal, just like the headstock, at least as we see right here. This side's a little harder to tell because it's been chunked out, but that side you can see it there. So little tiny things like that. Now let's talk price. As most of you know, if you've been around here long enough, but at this point, I'm definitely a bottom feeder on price. I buy opportunistically. I hunt for long periods of time because if you have too many guitars, you don't need that next one right away, so why not wait one out and try and find a great deal? The Gibson Les Paul Custom I bought as a 40th birthday present to myself because I was born in the same year. And I was going to hunt the entire year of being 39 and buy it before I turned 40. And I got an email from a buddy of mine that saw it on eBay as it sits here without the Bigsby, and it was $2,100, which is a crap ton of money. That's so much money. But it's my 40th, and I sold some other stuff so I can buy this. I sold a Les Paul traditional plus top and a Gibson Les Paul Junior from 2015. So I sold 2 of those, and I bought this. I have not seen one in any condition that was playable sell for less than $3,000 in the last year. So it was a really good deal to buy, and it's appreciated some by buying it right. If I were to sell it, I could probably get at least $2,700 reasonably fast. So that's a nice thing to know, right? This guy I bought used from Sam Ash via, I think it was Reverb or eBay, one of the two, and it was $600 to my door. And it has an additional thing. This has been rewired. It's got bumblebee caps in it, 50s wiring. But what it's done is, instead of having the Gibson, which is like the neck and middle, and bridge and middle, I believe that's how they do it, and the 3-way switches, this basically has neck, this classic Les Paul, so neck and bridge as the 3 things to choose here, has a master volume for the neck, a master volume for the bridge, has a master tone for all of them, and what this one is a blend-in knob, which allows you to add in that middle pickup at any time. Now, what that means is that I can have neck on its own, I can add the bridge in. When I add the middle in, and when I add the middle in, it's out of phase. So if I get this to full volume, they'll give themselves that quack T-Bone Walker out of phase kind of fun stuff that you can have a lot of fun with. But all I have to do is roll off the volume of either pickup, and now they go back into just blending a middle and a neck, which is super, super cool. Once they're not on equal strength, to then really become completely out of phase. So that's really, really cool. What I can also do is roll off the volumes on both of the other pickups and only have the middle put in there, which is actually a really cool tone. When John Mayer, and they're working on John Mayer's signature guitar for the Grateful Dead tours right now, they were trying to figure out how Jerry Garcia, who's a lot of his guitar lines is what John Mayer has to play, got many of his tones. And what they learned, it was so much of it was playing with the middle pickup. It's not as full as the neck, and it's not quite as thin or as bitey as the bridge, and then blending stuff in, but the middle pickup became very important. I think some people are appreciating it more. Plus it just looks effing cool. So that's how this is wired. It's exactly how I would want to custom wire it and how I've intended to custom wire this. Because that I'm going to leave this one stock because it does some cool things in the way Gibson intended, and this does some cool things in the way that I would love. And that's why I dig it. So stay tuned. I have a full tone kind of review of this guitar. I also have a full tone review of this guitar, and this is a late 80s Ernie Les Paul custom copy. It's got a fuller neck. It's only a 2 pickup. It's still pretty heavy. It's about the same weight as that, maybe a little bit more. No chambering. Go-to tuners, that kind of stuff. Another really, really cool guitar. I get this for just about $500. So, and still vintage. because 1989, 1988 is now vintage. So keep an eye out for those videos. Those will be coming up. Keep also an eye out, starting very soon. Every month I'm going to put a different t-shirt up on Teespring. Something fun like Benton. Holly Benton. Those will be up on a Teespring site, so you can go and buy t-shirts for that. Keep an eye there. Also keep an eye out. We just rolled 10,000 subscribers. You guys are awesome. And I want to do a little giveaway related to that. And we're going to combine that giveaway with a little bit of philanthropy, doing good. And the whole theme of it is going to be any charities, any things that everyone appreciates to be able to comment to a video. That video will be coming up very soon. We're going to pick everything out of a hat. We're going to give an Amazon gift card out to the winner. Denomination is probably going to be $100 or give or take. Then we're also going to do a donation to whichever charity that person chooses. Just a little something so that say thank you to you guys, and then we all try and do something good for other people. Anyway, that should be a whole lot of fun. With that, I've been Nick in the Sticks. Yes, folks, I do have issues, but I love sharing with you. Come back soon, subscribe, like, all those things. If you feel like you missed out when I finally put up videos, click the little bell down next to the subscribe Nick in the States thing, and you'll get notified. That's kind of cool. With all that, I've been Nick in the States. I have issues. Yes, I probably already said that. Goodbye, take care, good night.
Trooper 8675309 to base.
Go ahead, 5309.
Base, we have some intruders here who haven't yet subscribed to the channel. Shall I detain them?
5309, subject them to 2 options for more videos.
Good call, Base. That should bring them around.